Guys, all the cars that you see in these videos are for sale on my website, www.woodsandbarclay.com. Enjoy the video. Hey, welcome back everyone. Today on the 83 300 CD, we're going to do the power steering fluid and filter, the mono valve, the fuel sending unit, the thermostat, and the Swaybar end links. Also going to replace the battery because it's 4 years old, and we're also going to pop out the Becker radio and install the exact same correct year model, but with Bluetooth added. And last thing, I keep forgetting to name stuff I'm doing in the video. Last thing we're going to do is change the primer pump, because that is a common leak area when they have the original primer pumps. We're going to put on the upgraded, better Bosch primer pump. As you can see, I've already removed the cap and drained the power steering fluid. And what we want to do first is get out the power steering fluid filter. There we go. We'll just set that one right there. All right, here's a new Hengst filter. And we can see nice and clean. And you can see this one has some miles on it. Not too dirty. I still see some of the, it's kind of clean around the bottom there, but yeah, obviously let's go ahead and change that and drop it down in here. Now you fill it up with Dexron Mercon 3. That's basically automatic transmission fluid. That's what these things took from the factory. And then I got to purge the bubbles out of the system. And you can see recommended, there we go, Dexron, well, the light shine, there you go, and the Roman numeral 3. That's the correct stuff to use. That's also what you use in the transmission. So like I said, we got to purge the bubbles out by turning the steering wheel lock to lock and then refilling it, and then turn it lock to lock and then refilling it, or else it'll foam up when we start the car. So I'll go ahead and do that process offline. There you can see our nice fresh filter and bright clean fluid in there. So let me go ahead and purge that. Okay guys, we got our cap back on here. Next thing I want to do is remove and replace this mono valve. I'm sure that's the original one in there. So the first thing you do, undo the 12 volt power supply. Power off of there like that. Just move that aside. Now on the mono valve, you guys can see right here, there you go. There are 4 flathead screws right there. You don't have to do these 10 millimeters. You can just take these flatheads off. And the way you can easier get access to the ones in the back is take off this molding right here. It's made to do that. You can slide it off to about right there, and then we can more easily get access to those. Okay, now you want to do this when your car is cold because there's coolant that flows through here. And let me show you what we have. So you just grab the top of it right here. All right, see, we're going to lose a little coolant. That's normal because there's coolant in there. And then this whole assembly pulls out. Okay, here is our mono valve assembly. I'm sorry, it's the mono valve insert. I think that the whole assembly is called the mono valve. But the way this works, 12 volt power is right there, and that causes this plunger to come out like that, to shoot forward, and it plugs the hole and doesn't let coolant through, and that way your heater core doesn't have hot coolant in it, and the air won't blow cold when your AC's on. Well, let me show you what happens on these. So we take this out, and you notice we have a small washer. Next, we have a wavy washer, and then we have a big washer. So we're going to just grab the big washer, take the whole assembly out. We'll set that back down. That's a electromagnetic coil right there. I'll show you what that looks like. So if we just take this cap off, see, that's just a coil that energizes and moves the magnet inside the valve insert. And that causes it to move like that. Here's why we replace these. Look at that. That is an original mono valve. See, the boot is torn. And that's going to have adverse effects. It'll either mean your heat will always be on, or the heat won't come on, or the AC won't come on, but it's always heat. It has weird effects. I've seen both things happen, but we got to go ahead and change that. And here, these are new old stock original Bosch monovalves. It's about $350 a piece, guys, and they're very hard to come by, but they're still out there. There we go. See how that boot is perfectly good, never been used, fresh out of the box. So we have there we go, let me hold it this way. The big washer, here they have a little flat one that goes right there between the wavy one and then the small one. And guys, that's all we do. Slide that right back in there. Now let me show you how this operates. So here I just have 12 volts, and I'll touch one to there. Now watch the mono valve. See? See how it moves in and out like that? That's how that operates. So let's go ahead and get this back in the car. All right, guys, here's our mono valve. We have small washer, wavy washer, small washer, wavy washer, big washer. And let's go ahead and insert this back in the car. And this is genuine Bosch. It's the real deal. It's not the Euro aftermarket or the MTC aftermarket. So we'll just hold it right there. And insert it back into place, just like that. And then I like to start these by hand so I don't drop them. And you just snug these up until they bottom out. You don't want to crank them down with all your might. And there we go. Now let's just plug our power cable back in. All right, next let's go ahead and replace this battery. Got the new battery right there. Oh, we're also doing the Becker Radio today. I forgot about that. Now I'm going to go ahead and just leave the hood gasket detached because it makes it easier to get the battery out. See which way is going to be easier to get out of here. There we go. That way. Oh man, that battery tray is fantastic. Let me show that to you guys. Guys, check out the condition of this original battery tray. We have some minor surface rust here, but that is probably the best looking 300D or 123 battery tray I've ever seen. So what I want to do now is get some rust inhibitor black paint and go and paint all around that so it preserves it and it never progresses past that. That one's in remarkable condition. Guys, this is a great rust inhibitor. It is called, let's see, let me get out of the lights. Here we go. It's called Zero Rust. I've used this stuff on several muscle cars, classic cars on the undercarriages, and it works fantastic for years. The Navy also contracted these guys to do some of their fleet. So let me show you what that looks like after we've treated that tray. Look at that. Now that is going to be good forever, as long as you park your car in your garage, you don't leave it out in the elements and whatnot. That is fully treated and will no longer rust. All right, we've let our rust inhibitor dry to protect that battery tray. Now let's get this beast back in there. All right. Damn, those things are heavy. All right, now let's put our gasket back on. All right, let's put our mounting plates back in here. Okay, there we have our new battery, our treated battery tray, and our hold down plates back in there. Okay, the next thing we want to do is get the thermostat out and then drain our coolant and fill it up with some fresh coolant. You just use a 10 millimeter here, and pretty easy. And I'm going to loosen them. Yeah, so this is a low mileage car, guys, and these bolts are in awesome condition. Sometimes you have to be careful if there's any kind of corrosion around these bolts, because they can snap off and then you have to drill them out, and that's just a mess. But this being such a low mileage garage kept vehicle, they come right out. And there's one underneath there. There we go. Like I said, these come out really easy because it's such a nice vehicle, but just be careful when you're doing that yourself. Another common thing I check on these cars before we lift it up in the air is this throttle linkage bushing on the firewall. Now, this has already been changed on this car. See how tight it is? But there's like a bushing right behind here, and it's made out of a material almost like a roller skate wheel. But that just deteriorates and rots, and then your throttle linkage will flop around. But this one is brand new. I can tell it's already been changed, so don't need to do that. Okay, before we drain the radiator and thermostat, we want to take off our expansion tank cap. That way the coolant can flow easily out of the vehicle. Okay, to drain our coolant, all we do is open our valve right here, and it's going to come gushing out. There we go. Okay, we'll get every last little drop out of there, and then we'll tighten this back, lower the car, and then we're going to change our thermostat and refill it with fresh coolant. Okay, we drained that first, so it won't be such a mess when we take out our thermostat here. And then we're going to put in our new thermostat and then put a little anti-seize on the housing bolts. That way they will never seize in there and never be difficult to get out. They'll never snap. Let's let that drain. Then we'll remove this housing and take out the, what we're probably going to see is the original thermostat. That's why I want to change it. All right, it's all drained out there. And let's see if this is the original thermostat. Now you notice the spring side is facing into the engine. That's the correct way to install it, because you can put it in backwards. So we'll pull this guy out of here. Got to get this gasket out. There we go. There we go. It goes spring side in the engine. And yep, I can see that is, in fact, the original thermostat. That's why I wanted to change this. So we're going to replace our gasket and our thermostat. So let's get the replacements here. All right, the new thermostat, it's an 80-degree thermostat. That's what goes in here. We want to go into the engine that way. And this gasket, you can see, has a little groove inside of it. And that groove just goes around the edge of your thermostat. Like that. There we go. And our housing down here, we just line that up with the little notch on our housing. And it's that easy, guys. Don't need any sealant or any nonsense on there. You just put it back in there, and then we put it right back up there. Now, I want to put a little anti-seize on the bolts before I reinstall them. All right, guys, you can see I've got anti-seize. There we go. See the goopy gray stuff on the original bolts. Doesn't take much. Just put a little on there. In fact, I'm going to wipe some of this off. And we'll just put these back in there, and then that guarantees they will never seize. Like I said, guys, you do not crank these down with a lot of torque. You just snug them up, or else you're going to strip your thermostat housing. And that's it. Do not over tighten those. That was maybe like 8 Newton meters or something like that. All right, let's go ahead and get some fresh coolant in here. Guys, this is the stuff to use. Valvoline Zurex G05. That's the correct coolant. Mercedes even has a newer one out. But the blue stuff or the gold stuff basically is the right stuff to use. And it's probably going to take about 3 of these. And then we have to bleed the air out of the system, which involves putting the defrost on, full defrost, and then lifting the front tires a little bit and leaving the cap off the reservoir, and you got to purge the air out of it. Now, and it's a self-bleeding system. Now what I also do, and this helps, I remove this upper radiator hose and hold it up, and I'm going to fill this upper radiator hose until it's full down into the housing area here. And that helps it. Makes it a lot easier to get the air out. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right. We're just going to pinch this guy off here. Oh, it's taking a good bit. You can hear the bubbles coming out of there. All right, that's probably good. And we're going to reattach that. All right, there we go. All right, now we need to go ahead, bleed some air out of the system, run the car, get it up to temp, put the defroster on full blast, and then we'll fill it up some more once it gets some of the air out. Okay, you can see we have couple of blocks under the front wheels, and you can see I've got the car lowered down in the back with the front end up in the air. And we're going to go ahead and crank up the car, throw on the defroster, and let it get up to temp, and take the cap off our reservoir and bleed any bubbles out of here. All right, you can see our engine temp is approaching 80 degrees. We definitely have coolant flowing through the heater core because I have heat coming out of the vents. All right, let's go check our levels. Okay, you can see we got a little activity in our reservoir. You can see it was moving a little bit, so that means some bubbles are coming up through there. So I'll go ahead and finish bleeding this air out of here, and then we're going to move to the primer pump, which is right here. We're going to change that primer pump out with an original, not original, I'm sorry, the upgraded Bosch version of the primer pump. These don't leak. Sometimes these old original ones with age, they will start leaking. So we're going to go ahead and get that out of here. Okay, our temp is right up over 80. That means our thermostat's open. We got high heat in here, so we have purged all the air out of there. I'll go ahead and shut that off. All right, the next thing we want to do is remove that hand primer pump right there. That's what, when you change your fuel filters, you can unscrew this like that, and then this is a primer pump, and I can see this one's already starting to leak. So we want to change that and put in the Bosch more upgraded one. There we go. Got that loose. And then this thing, hopefully you guys can see that, this twists out of here, and you're going to get diesel. It's going to drip, but there we go. There's the original Mercedes one. So we've got that out of here. And also down in there, there's going to be, let me zoom in. There we go. You can barely make out, there's a copper crush washer on there. So we need to get that copper crush washer off of there. And you can do that with a little pick. Oh, there we go. I just knocked it out of there. Fell down there on the ground. All right, let's get a replacement in there. There's the Bosch replacement. And what they come with There you go, there's your part number. And what they come with, you screw off this protective cap here. There we go. And they come with a new crush washer. And then I use a crow's foot to tighten it. So let's go ahead and get this down there. You want to make sure you don't drop the crush washer when you're putting it on there. There we go. All right, this is what I use to tighten it. I think that's a 17 millimeter. I actually use an 11, well, you can't see it. There you go, 11/16. But I think that's equivalent to 17 millimeter. And I just get this guy down here. There we go. And you can get a good grip to tighten it on there. There we go. That's it. You can get a little bit more. There we go. All right, that is not going anywhere. All right, that is easy as that. And there you go, guys. There's the new Bosch primer pump. And on these, you can just pump. You don't have to unscrew them. Let's go ahead and get it. Okay, I've wiped it off. That's really nice and dry. You can see if I wipe my hand along the bottom, there's no diesel that comes off. That's how you know if it's leaking. So I'm going to crank the car, and we're going to make sure that does not leak. Perfect. There we go. Bone dry in there. So that takes care of that problem. All right, guys, the next thing we want to do is install our new Swaybar end links and put in our Becker radio. We're pretty much done in the engine compartment. Next thing I want to do up here is degrease it, clean it up, make it super nice. And then later this week, it goes over to Scott to be buffed, polished, you know, clay bar, the whole process. We'll detail it. But for now, let's go ahead and put in these rear Swaybar end links. All right, we're back at it. Getting the car up on the lift to change these rear Swaybar end links. And we got to go ahead and take off these rear wheels. All right, so here we have the Swaybar end link, and you can see, I think that's a 17 millimeter. I'll have to check. We take that nut off there, and then we have to get a wrench on. That is a nut right there that actually goes into the backing plate or the end of the axle flange. So we're going to go ahead and take that off, unscrew that one there, and then get in some new Swaybar end links. All right, so that gets the top disconnected here. And yeah, see how loose that is? There's dirt and stuff has gotten inside there, so that would be due to break pretty soon. So let's go ahead and get the other side out. Okay, for this side, it's a little tricky. You got to get a wrench on there and crack it loose. And you just do a little bit. There you go. Just do a little bit at a time. There we go, until we slowly get this out of here. So I'm not gonna bother you guys with recording this entire process, but we're going to slowly get that one out of there. There we go. See how this boot is ripped, and this is just floppy. The ball joint's like worn out in there, and there's no more boot. And you see how this one, nice fresh boot on it, and see how stiff it is. That's going to last a long time. So we got the old ones out. Let's throw the new ones in there. All right, guys, it's a little tedious getting these back in here. Just have to do a little bit at a time and screw the bottom in and then attach snug down the top. All right. All right. There we go. All right, guys, there we go. Nice new Swaybar end link. There we go. correctly attached there at the bottom and up at the top. That'll be good for many, many years. All right, now let's go get the other side. There we go. New Swaybar end link. New Swaybar end link. Also, on the rear suspension, I've went ahead and cleaned with acetone the rear control arms back here, and then hit it with a little semi-gloss paint. That's how it was from the factory. You can see I still need to clean up in here a little bit and clean the springs off a little bit, and we will get some of the original semi-gloss factory paint back on the correct suspension parts. I just like my suspension to look really good under the car, so let me go ahead and take care of that. Okay, I've just done some basic cleaning with acetone. You can see I got the original factory markings back on the rear springs. I just wiped off the dust back here, so it's cleaning up real nice. So let me go ahead and finish cleaning around back here, and we'll be done with the suspension cleanup, and then we're going to start on the Becker radio. All right, I'm really happy with how the original suspension came out. I just cleaned it up real nice with acetone and then hit it with a light coating of the original semi-gloss, factory semi-gloss paint, and it looks fantastic. Let's go look on this side over here. Yeah, that looks absolutely fantastic. All right, guys, look how good that looks. Went ahead and refinished the muffler in semi-gloss black, cleaned all the suspension, put it back to the original factory semi-gloss black, and that looks awesome. And then, of course, when I go to detail, Scott is going to get a pressure washer and clean all underneath the vehicle and get this dirt and dust off from under here, and it's going to look really, really nice. All right, let's go up there and install the Becker radio. One note, when I was putting back on this rear passenger wheel, I noticed that the center cap had some scratches and a little crack in it right there. So I went ahead and replaced the center cap with a brand new one from the RBM Atlanta Mercedes dealer, and got this one off of there. Now we're going to remove the original Becker 612 radio and put in a Becker 612 radio that has Bluetooth installed. You just remove the ashtray, press down the little clip right there, and it pulls out. And then you need to remove the ashtray housing or assembly that it mounts into. And there's just two screws back here, two Phillips heads, and there's a plug back there for the cigarette lighter. We'll just set that there. Now there's two clips underneath the radio. You pull the clips down. All right. Okay, now once that's out, I mean, it's got all the factory original connections, which is awesome. It hasn't ever been tampered with. We'll just unscrew that. All right, that's it. That's how you take out the radios. They're so easy to take out of these cars. All right, let's go get the original 6112 that has the Bluetooth added. All right, we have here's our Becker that has had the Bluetooth added. And I'm simply going to reconnect everything on the back here. We just want to test it. All right, let's just test it real quick. Okay, I've got the time. It correctly illuminates. Let's turn it on. Bass. All right, and there's the treble. Okay, that's about all the Britney Spears I can handle. All right, there we go. We are in business. So let's turn that back off. We'll slide this guy back in there. Okay, before I install the ashtray, I want to check the antenna operation. All right, the antenna is correctly going up. And then if we turn off the radio, the antenna correctly closes. Now I just want to check the manual antenna adjustment. All right, so should be able to run it up there. All right, there we go. It's at like half mast right now. Whoops. It's at like half mast. Oh, there we go. And I can run it up and down manually, so that works correctly. All right, good. Let's get that shut back off. And let's go ahead and install the ashtray. Boom. There we go. Mission accomplished. All right, guys, the final thing we're going to do is remove the fuel level sender. A common thing on the diesels is for those to get clogged up just because diesel's dirty. So we want to remove it. It's under the first aid kit. We'll take it to the parts washer, open it up, and make sure it's all cleaned out, and then reinstall it. And we will see how dirty this is. I'm sure it has never been cleaned. So we'll take that nut off. I'll just set it up there. There's the base plate. We'll set that up there. And now let's take the sender apart. Okay, guys. As expected, with 50,000 miles on it, this thing is perfectly clean. Yeah, there is not a speck of gunk anywhere on that. Somebody might have already done that. That is super clean. So I'll go ahead and just wash out the inside of it just in case. Then we're just going to go ahead and reassemble it. Yeah, you can see how clean it is down in there. Let's go ahead and get this thing reassembled. All right. There's a notch right there. There's a notch right there and a notch right here. Those notches need to go together. Just like that. And then we'll put on our end cap like that. There we go. And we'll put a little nut back on there, and we'll get this thing back in the car. All right. Hear it? Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and put this back in the car. All right, guys, I'm back in the car, and the last thing I want to address right there, you see that little crack in the surround for the visor? I have a old stock visor, original to this car, so I want to replace this, and I'll just repair that later for another project. So let's go ahead and get this out of here. And guys, this is a very common issue on even the nicest 123s. These are just notorious, these little bezels for cracking. So this is very easy to remove. You got two screws there. And we'll fold this up. And we'll get the screw behind it. Remove that one. There we go. And then that just snaps out of there, and we can remove this visor. Now let's get our replacement visor that's not cracked. Our replacement visor here, see, this one's not cracked, so the lid stays in place and it won't pop out. Perfect. Let's go ahead and get our screw. All right. Good as new. All right, everybody, that concludes all the refurbishment and mechanical aspects of the 1983 300 CD. Everything's knocked out, ready to go. You could drive this car to California. However, the next video, we're going to go over to Scott's place and have it professionally buffed, polished, and detailed, and then this car will be finished. See you next time.